Hey, how's it going everyone? Like DCG here, and today I'm going to be doing a masterclass slash guide or matchup guide on Mega Kangaskhan Bouffalant. Recently my tweet blew up after I point blank stated this deck beats the big three moving into Phantasmal format, and I actually mean it. I'm not going to clickbait you. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, this deck is the best deck in the room. It beats everything and anything, Wonka bars and Gobstopper. Like, no, I'm not going to say that. But what I am going to say is I've put a lot of testing into this deck specifically. I've been grinding games ever since Milwaukee and the introduction of Mega Evolution. And I know a lot of people kind of really don't see me playing this deck too often, but I do play it behind closed doors. So let's get into the list in its entirety, and then I'm going to go into matchups and then how to approach them, how good they are, and if what changes I'd make to the list if I had more than 60 cards in the deck. So, starting off, we're going to look at Mega Kangaskhan. Obviously, Mega Kangaskhan has the ability to run Errand. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in an active spot, you may use this ability to draw 2 cards. You can't use another run Errand this turn. And then for 3 colors, you flip a coin until you get tails. It is 200 plus 50 for each head you hit. Now, a couple people already kind of see that, and they're like, coin flip cards have never been good, but that ability is actually pretty broken. Yes, that ability is broken. Drawing 2 every single turn is insanity. So 300 HP obviously is a little on the higher side, but it's nothing too impressive when you have stuff like Charizard at 330, Dragapult at 320, and yes, even Mega Venusaur at like 360, 370. If you don't quote me or you're gone. But if we add Bouffalant into the equation, which with the Curly Wall ability, if there's 2 Bouffalants in play, your basic colorless Pokemon takes 60 less damage from attacks. Mega Kangaskhan gets up to 360. With Bravery Charm, 410. With Lively Stadium, you can have 440 HP on a basic Pokemon that not only is going to be swinging for potentially unlimited damage, really, but can push damage off and set up knockouts with Monkey Dory's Adrena Brain. So the whole concept of the deck is to be a big wall Pokemon, never to die, never to let the Kangaskhan get knocked out, and sit there and knock out your opponent while constantly healing. Now, why do I feel like this deck is better now than what it was in the past format? Well, we didn't have access to Jumbo Ice Cream. Jumbo Ice Cream is a new item card where you heal 80 damage from your active Pokemon has 3 or more energy. Obviously, that is very strong, but to a newer player or to a player who's been playing a little bit, you're probably like, bro, why is this better than Super Potion? Like, Super Potion, Cook, Funnel, or Fennel, all those cards exist, and they pretty much do the same thing. They all heal. The difference between that is you can use multiple Jumbo Ice Creams in a turn, and 80 damage actually is a lot. With the introduction of Crustle to the list, which I talked a bit about it in my Discord, which if you haven't joined already, go into the description below. I put my Discord link in there. I constantly make changes to this deck. I constantly post my edits. If anybody has any questions, I obviously answer it as quick and efficiently as I possibly can. Crustle really is your cornerstone, or not your cornerstone, but it is your... it is your cornerstone counter because of Super Herb Scissors effect, but it is your Gholdengo out. So, a lot more recently, with the release of, Phantasmal, there was a new Pokemon that was released, Megalopunny. For 2 colorless energy, it does 160 Shred. That gets around to Cornerstone, but I think the worst part about it is it doesn't have an ability. So the first attack for a single colorless does 230 damage, which is way too much damage on a 330 HP Pokemon, pretty much one-shotting your counter to Gholdengo. So what was the next best option? Well, it was Crustle, because yes, Cornerstone is very powerful into matchups like Zard. It doesn't really do anything against Dragapult. Crustle can actually do stuff against Dragapult, because that forces them to attack into Dracloak, or if they have access to Moltres, attack with Moltres, which obviously that's not going to do anything. It's also, again, with Charizard too, it depends on the list. I'm going to get into that in a little bit too. Crustle has the ability Mysterious Rock in. You prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your Pokemon EX. So, Gholdengo EX can't touch you, and Zoroark can't touch you, Charizard can't touch you, Dragapult can't touch you. Literally anything that's playable in the meta right now can't touch you outside of like Gardevoir because they play a bunch of babies. So, and then the 120 Shred effect is just the icing on the cake on this card. So that is another wall to incorporate along with Luxurious Cape to have 250 HP. No, it doesn't work with Bouffalant, but that doesn't matter when you're a 250 HP one prizer, essentially just soaking in hits, using Ice Cream to heal it off, and pushing off damage with Monkey Dory. By the end of the day, if a Mega Lopunny hits you for 160 damage with the Luxurious Cape, one Ice Cream and one Monkey Dory move puts you immediately out of range, and it puts you in range to two-shot the Mega Lopunny if you get the second Monkey Dory going into the next turn. Now, there is a tech card I do want to talk about a little bit after I go over all this. This is going to be in like the 60-ish cards, the 61 plus ish cards. That could be gimmicky, but I'd have to test it a little bit more. But for those going to like Stuttgart this weekend, I don't want to drop that little tech card on them yet because I don't want to feed bad content with the off chance it's just a bad card. But we do have the incorporation of Shaman. This stops Gardevoir from being able to just go around the Mega Kangaskhan. This forces them to have their counter catchers to actually snipe stuff. It's also really good against Terabox because you could drop this down and it prevents sniping of Bouffalants. Yes, you can obviously bench 2 Bouffalants and they can't one-shot you, but you'd rather the damage not be there so they can't just go double Wellspring and knock you out before you actually establish anything. So having the Shaman in there is a very cool inclusion that I've had in and out of the list. I just haven't really decided, or before I just really didn't decide if I wanted Blood Moon Ursaluna or not over this card, and in the end the Blood Moon ended up getting taken out, but that would be in the 60 plus cards. Just the rest of the list is pretty standard. It's like 4 Arven, 4 Boss, 2 Lily, 2 Penny, 2 Crispin. I've been bouncing back and forth between 2 and 3 Crispin. Just by the end of the day with this specific build, I think 2 Crispin is fine. Because you can afford to take a little bit of a slower route. Before, the reason why we play triple Crispin is because our idea against Gholdengo was to sit behind Frillish, item lock them, and then while simultaneously setting up a cornerstone in the back. With this, you can really afford and be like, oh, well, I'll Crispin, I can take an off turn, or I can Energize plus Crispin. Yeah, now I got my counter out. Like, it's so sick. But at the same token, that might be incorrect. Maybe the third Crispin could make its way back in there, so you're able to go Crispin Ascension. I don't know. It just comes with more time, but the 2 Crispin has seemed fine so far. 4 Jumbo Ice. I've seen a couple people go down to 3, a couple people go down to 2. I feel like you don't get max value out of it if you don't play the 4. You never see them off of Lily and Arven. I'm still struggling to find them off of Lilies and Arvens off of games, but when I need them in pivotal moments, I use them. And 4 Ice Cream against Guardy is just so impossible for them to really do anything or set up knockouts. So yeah. 3 Pokegear, 2 Stretcher. I've debated on going 1 Stretcher, 1 Rod, which we'll get into a little bit later as well, just for the Crispin, but it seems fine. 2 Nest-Ball, because if you prize Charlie and you play a 1-1 split, you only have one way to find your basics. I'd rather have the 2 and just bite the bullet in the 1 in 10 games that the precious Charlie's prized. 1 Counter Catcher. I did add this back into the list. Counter Catcher is just so good at what it does, because you can literally go Crispin Counter Catcher on Pokemon and just take knockouts out of nowhere, and your opponent just doesn't even see it. I've debated almost 2 Counter Catchers, but I feel like if you're playing Yveltal, that's where the second Counter Catcher really shines over just having the 1, because the 1 really is enough to search it off of Arven, and you're not playing any hand disruption on yourself, so you don't play Iono. Yes, you do play Lily, but Lily's going to draw you a bunch of cards as opposed to like Iono, which can draw you 6-. So Charlie being the ace spec is imperative. I saw a couple people go to like Pokevital Egg, Hero's Cape, sometimes even Max Belt, which is really weird because this is a tanky deck. But Precious Charlie by the end of the day really is your best ace spec because it just sets up your whole board. You don't have to mess around with playing multiple Nest Balls and multiple different ways to find your basic Pokemon. So it's just the best card. If Capture Energy was legal though, that's a different story, but Capture Energy is not legal. 1 Energy Switch. I debated a second one, but the 1 felt fine. Like, a second one would be cool if it was more heavily reliant on Penny. It's not. It's just Ice Creams, and if you need a Penny, you need a Penny. Go ahead. So I would say if you did play heavier Penny, like 3 or 4, then the second E-Switch would be a consideration. But because we're not doing that, the 1 E-Switch feels fine. The Vessel to Search. I almost debated it being an Energy Search, but like itself, but the discard effect of Vessel can be pivotal at points, because you can get rid of dead cards like Shaman against Dragapult per se and get energies out. You can get rid of the Crustle line if you don't need it in certain matchups. Thinning is just winning. 2 Bravery Charm, 2 Energize, so you're able to get your energies and have big Pokemon. 1 Luxurious Cape, I already went over this, it's just to build a big Crustle. 1 Air Balloon, so you have at least some form of retreat that isn't Penny. This does scare me a little bit, just because Yveltal Trap is real, and if you have 2 Bouffalants in play, you actually take no damage, which means you have to load up a Bouffalant, which can be problematic if they're scattered around your board. So just keep that in mind if they try to Yveltal Trap you. Just keep some energies open. Have your Crispin plus E-Switch in hand if you can, because Crispin plus E-Switch with Bounding Power or Boundless Power actually one-shots Yveltal, which is really cool. And you're taking 0 damage off of Clutch. 2 Lively Stadium. It's just a big Kangaskhan. I know some people are going to point out at the Milwaukee Regional Championship, I actually, in a very similar build to this, played 2 copies of Town Store. Now, why did I decide to switch off of that? I just, like, Town Store is pretty cool in here. It's able to get you Cape, and it's able to further energize and Bravery Charm. I just feel like if you're not playing Lively Stadium as a 2 or 3, if you're not getting it efficiently, or getting the best use out of it. Like, if you played Cypher or Chorus, I feel like it'd be a little bit different. But same thing with Town Store. Like, I don't even know why Charizard plays it as a 1-of. I guess because you have Pidgeot, you can search it out and kind of benefit off of it. But with this particular deck, in the list before, I did play triple Lily. I think it was like 4 Arven, 4 Lilies, or 4 Arven, 3 Lilies. But I went in for the Turbo Energize, which is like, yes, you do want to do that as well. But I do have access to Crispin, so if I do miss the Energize, it's not the end-all to be-all. So this, I guess Crispin would be the logic behind no Town Store to, like, search out the Energize as fast as possible. And then the energy split is 5-3-2, just to make Crispin a little more efficient. Otherwise, I'd be doing 6-2-2. So, with that in mind, let's go and look at some of the meta decks, go over some of the lines, and really how a lot of these cards play into it. I'm going to go here. So, starting off, we're going to look at Gholdengo. So, I picked this list specifically because this has the Mega Lopunny in it. Obviously, we have very little to no data outside of, like, Japan and the Full Grip event that ended up unfolding a couple weeks ago. Let me see if I actually... There it is. Okay, so this is the second Gholdengo list. So this is the list that just got top 4 at LAIC with Simon Trottier. Trottier, I'm so sorry, dude. But as you can see, the texts are different. And this is another thing I want to go over, because this is pretty important, and it's like one of the reasons why I actually dropped Cornerstone. So, as you can see in... I just got rid of the tab, didn't I? I did. Oh, no, it's right here. Okay. I'm so professional, guys. So, in Simon's list, it was a 1-1 Mega Lucario. Obviously, this was his Cornerstone counter. Very simple, very efficient. In my original list for Kangaboof, I think, yep, I had the Frillish, because not only does the Frillish hit weakness on the Riolu, so you can actually 2-shot it, you play 4 boss in 3 gears, so you're able to fish it out, and no pun intended, and actually knock out the Riolu in 2 turns, but I played double psychic energy, so I could just Stretcher, reset it, and knock it out, and it slows down your opponent so they can't actually use Ultra Ball, but if they play Cypher, of course, it kind of negates that. And that was really the problem that I had, is I didn't really want to rely on my opponent just not drawing well off of a Frillish, and in general, just not having it in their opening hand, which felt really bad. So the Crustle ended up coming back in over the Cornerstone because, one, it does just completely negate the Mega Lucario, which in my opinion, this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying this to be biased, I feel like Mega Lucario is just better than Mega Lopunny moving forward for a couple of reasons. One, the Riolu actually one-shots the Buneri and keeps a one-prize board state if they end up dropping it. I know a couple of you are going to be like, but why would I bench Buneri in the mirror match? Why Well, if you go against stuff like, I don't know, per se, Mega Lopunny Dusknoir, which is starting to see a rise, you actually one-shot Buneri for an energy over having to commit a Zoroark, which will die to a Dusknoir. Yes, Riolu also dies to a Dusknoir, but it goes into a 3-prize move that's extremely hard to kill, extremely hard to take multiple prizes off, and it's really good into Kangaskhan, which, will it see a Surge to play? I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe I'm the cause of it, maybe I'm just trying to, you know, convince everybody to play it so I can play Raging Bull at the next event. I don't know. Meta manipulation. But no, Mega Lucario I just feel like is a stronger card in a vacuum. It hits higher numbers. Yes, Mega Lopunny is good for stuff like Crustle. Oh, damn it, I did it again. But that's really about it, and it's Cornerstone. Mega Lucario just has multiple different uses. Riolu can one-shot the Veneries. Like I said, it's just... I feel like it's just better, in my opinion. I don't personally get why people are playing Mega Lopunny. I've been testing it in Gholdengo. It feels good, but unless you're playing a 2-1 line, you don't get value. Because what they can also do is they can just Crustle hit, and then if you Turo and the Buneri goes back down, it's only a 1-of, you just get boss it up. What are they going to do? Like, their Zoroark's doing, you know, the 70 after you just healed the 80. You double Adrenabrain and go from there, right? So with the explanation out of the way, really how would I approach this matchup? I would get out Crustle as fast as you possibly can, because what this does is if they're playing the Mega Lopunny list, it forces them to drop down Lopunny. You go into Ascension if you possibly can. If you can't go into Ascension, it kind of does get weird. I've debated on adding Latias back in, but you do have access to Balloon and Lily's Determination to raw draw into the Crustle. But this is also why you play double Dwebble, because if they do find the way to boss up the Dwebble before it turns into a Crustle, you just promote the other Dwebble, immediately Ascension, and go right into the Crustle. Yes, I debated a 2-2 line as well. I feel like a 2-2 is strong, but do I prefer Shaman over it? I don't know. That's kind of where, like, more testing would come in. I've seen a lot of people get by with just a 2-1, so that's why I'm, like, just playing it so far, I haven't ran into really a problem with it. Just, like, I would probably say a Latias or a physical, like, a copy of Switch, just so you could, like, switch out of the Mega Kangaskhan instead of having to commit Balloon Attach, which you can't do if you also want to use Ascension, just so you know. Also, Penny... Penny is another option to get the Dwebble out of there. So I guess the more I'm thinking about it, like that, the Latias or the physical copy of Switch. The physical copy of Switch also gets you out of special conditions, which is really, really cool. It's just worse into item lock. So I would say get out the Crustle as fast as you can. If you start seeing Binary, find the Luxurious Cape as fast as you possibly can. Do you drop down Mega Kangaskhan is the question. Well, obviously they're not going to be playing 9 and 3 energies. They're probably going to be playing 8 and 3. They have to commit 10 energies to kill the Mega Kangaskhan, so they literally cannot prize 2 energies. If they do prize 2 energies, it's really bad on them, because with Lively Stain plus Bravery Charm, it goes up to 440. They have, well, when I say 10 energies, I know some of you are going to say that. 1 for the attachment, 9 for the discard, because that's 450. It does get there, so... yeah, I probably would not put down Kangaskhan. I'd just go full Crustle. If the Mega Lopunny comes into play, just stack your Ice Creams into your hand. Don't, like, stack your deck. Stack, like, draw a bunch of cards. Like, sit there behind Kangaskhan, draw a bunch of cards. Don't load up energy on the Kangaskhan, because they're probably going to be targeting it first. And by the time that the Lopunny comes into play, you're going to have Luxurious Cape, you're going to have a bunch of Ice Creams, you're going to have Boss, so you're just going to have the out around it, and there's nothing they can do about it. And then the rocks are pretty much going to be doing nothing, because the Zoroark's going to hit you for 70. What they can do is they can go Turo and then attack with a rock for 70. You can go Jumbo Ice Cream or Double Monkey Dory, because if you set up Double Monkey Dory against them, it's just so bad, because you can move 60 onto a Lunatone, 60 onto a Zoroark, and then take a knockout on the Binary. So whatever comes up next, obviously, if the Crustle doesn't get killed, which it won't because these are gone, and these are only doing like 70 damage at a time, you can push 60, knock out one, and knock out the other one. So that would be my line into Gholdengo. Same with this build. Like, if they play Mega Mawile, it's just easier because they just do not have an out. If they play Hops Cramorant, that one is a little bit easier, too, because you heal most damage going off of it. I would say Gholdengo is in your favor at a 70-30, depending on the tech cards, and if you prize a Crustle. Going into Guardy Jelly, because this is the one I get asked about frequently, like, really, really frequently. And I know Aban liked my tweet, so Aban, if you're watching, I love you. You're amazing. You're a great player, and if we play at regionals, I have to show you that I can pilot this deck way better than I'm explaining it. So the Guardy Jelly matchup, right? A lot of people kind of look at the list and like, what if they win the coin flip, force you to go first, and they start item locking you with Frillish? Obviously, in this build, there is no way to retreat the Frillish on turn 1. If we look at like Henry and Aban's list. Did Sebastian run it? Dude, did neither one of them run Balloon or Latias? That's interesting. If we look at Henry Chow's list, which is the same as Aban, I think. Yeah, same as Aban. Did you play Latias? Latias is ball searchable, which is one of the main reasons why they end up playing it. They only play one Arven, so it's harder to find, along with Secret Box being a one of. There's 4 Ultra Balls, 3 Nest Balls, so it's easier to just access out of the deck. Mysterious Garden also triggers with it, which is really, really cool. So if they go second and they end up free retreating in a Frillish and getting the item lock, people are like, oh, but that shuts down Trolley. What happens if you just don't hit the Trolley and get going? That is a great question. The way to play around that really is dependent on how your opening hand was. If you're able to load up a Kangaskhan with double Bouffalant, double Monkey Dory, plus a Shaman, there's really, or even like single Monkey Dory, single Kangaskhan on the bench, single in the active, double Bouffalant, and Shaman, it's kind of hard for them to get around that. I was playing at the Fulcrum event without Shaman, and I was still beating the Gardevoirs, but with the Shaman, it feels really, really, really good. That being because the second that they go into Jellicent, they have now made a very big mistake. Yes, they can Frillish and item lock you, but you play 4 copies of Boss's Orders to get around the Jellicent. You're not scared of it whatsoever. The item lock may seem intimidating, but I promise you it is not, because they're only doing 20 damage at a time until they decide to dump a bunch of energy, which then they are still only doing 100 damage, which then gives you a turn to just Monkey Dory manipulate damage and boss up their Monkey Dories. That's how you start this whole thing. You start bossing up their Monkey Dories. You ignore the 2-prizers until you start getting around that range, because what that does is, if you start targeting 2-prizers early, it turns their Ionos more powerful. It essentially makes our Ionos more powerful, and you don't really play any ways to draw out of late game Ionos outside of Lilies and naturally drawing from Kangaskhan. So if you just boss around the Jellicent into the Monkey Dories and knock them out, there's really there's nothing they can do when they start soaking up hits from you to throw it back. They can do it when they go into Gardevoir, but they're not playing Drifloon, which is like one of the biggest problems with this matchup for them. They do not have a good way to one-shot Kangaskhan. They're almost solely reliant on Jellicent shutting you out. And with this list specifically, it's a 2-1-2 Guardy. So if you only see one Ralts, and you see that they're going for, oh, well, I gotta get right here Guardy, but you already, ended up getting Kangaskhan out. You go after the Ralts, obviously, and then you start picking off the Jellicent at that point. But naturally, if they get going like they normally do, because it's Guardy, and they get right here Guardy, you start targeting down Monkeys, because it stops their damage output from being able to, it stops their mass damage output from preventing knockouts on you. Just ignore the Jellicent until you want to go until you're down at like 2 to 3 prizes left, because like I said, they're not doing any damage, and they're probably going to go into Screamtail at some point. But if you have Shaman, it becomes a lot worse. What they're going to try and do is they're going to try and snipe the Shaman with the Monkey Dory, but they can't do that if you're just consistently bossing up the Monkey Dory and moving the damage to the thing you're attacking too, because that's another thing that is like really cool about this deck. If they hit into you with Jellicent and you move the damage off of your Kangaskhan onto the Monkey Dory you are going to boss and knock out, that's a lot. That's less damage for them to work with for you to take knockouts. So this matchup, I would say, is probably 70-30. If they play it right, it's like 60-40. But it's still heavily in your favor. They just do not play Balloon. And I know a couple of you are going to say, oh, but they're going to play Mega Diancie. Yes, Mega Diancie actually does 180 damage, believe it or not. One Ice Cream puts you out of range of almost everything in the entire deck. 2 one-shot you right back unless they play Balloon, which you also have access to Monkey Dories, and you 2-shot the Mega Diancie. Putting a 3-prize liability down feels terrible. So terrible in that matchup. So just keep that in mind. Mega Diancie also just does nothing against you. It's just such a bad matchup for Gardevoir. And this is what I've been trying to explain to people with that. Bro. Oh my god, did I just close out everything? I think I did. No, maybe I didn't. Dragapult? Okay, so it closed out Dragapult, Mega Kangaskhan. So we're going to go over Dragapult. This is probably your easiest matchup, by far, hands down. Dragapult is the easiest matchup. You could run into one. Your deck is pretty much built to beat this deck naturally. Their damage output is 140. If they go into Dusknoir, you don't have Psyduck. Obviously, you don't have Psyduck. Wait, what? Why is there no Psyduck? Think about it this way. With people not really playing the Dusknoir line, Zard is dropping it, which is one of the biggest problems for this deck. If they play Dusknoir, they're dropping it. They're dropping it. You don't need Psyduck. Dragapult's now down to a 1/1/1. They're not reliant on it like they used to be. They're playing stuff like Monkey Dory to compensate for being hit in the mirror match. They're playing the third boss, or the research, or the Turo. They're just playing more consistency cards over the Dusknoir line, which can help, but if a lot of people are playing Psyduck, it's just gimmicky, and it doesn't really fix the math like you want it to. Also, Dusknoir is pretty bad in the mirror match unless you play Rare Candy. So, really, you don't need Psyduck. You could hide behind Crustle this entire game until they go into Monkey Dory, but then you can use your own Monkey Dory, have a Mist Energy, and they can't do anything. If you pick off the Duskull consistently, they just lose. If you see two Duskulls, what you want to do is you want to set up double Bouffalant to triple Bouffalant, along with double Monkey Dory and a single Kangaskhan on the active. If you set up triple Bouffalant when you see two Duskull, it prevents them from going double Dusknoir to blow up, or it prevents a single Dusknoir from being able to blow up a Bouffalant, and it forces them to have a 3-2-1, or a 2-2-1 Dusknoir line, which if they're reverting back to this 1-1-1 stuff, they're not going to have. They do play the triple stretcher, which is a little annoying, but they can only do it one at a time. But it's just pretty impossible to even take out one Kangaskhan, especially with all the ice creams. The double monkey is going to push off all the damage from your active, or that they end up spreading on the bench Bouffalants, because they will be targeting the Bouffalants in this matchup. The Lively Stadium is imperative. Even Luxurious Caping a Bouffalant isn't terrible. It's just like a Luxurious Caped Bouffalant with another Bouffalant in play actually stops you from being knocked out by Phantom Dive, and you can penny, and it is pretty cool. So that's another play you could do. Luxurious Cape isn't 100% dead in that matchup. You could Bravery Charm your bench Bouffalant, and then Bravery Charm the active. That forces him to attack with the Monkey Dories, which you just push the damage back. You have 2 copies of Penny, 4 copies of Ice Cream, and an Energy Switch, so you're able to dance around the monkeys. So this matchup is just super, super simple. Straight up cookie cutter. I would almost say it's a 90-10 if they're going down to a 1-1-1 Dusknoir. Another interesting thing is if they use a Dusknoir and they reset the Duskull and they actually can't kill you, if you get double Monkey, you can knock out the Duskull, and the game is pretty much just ruined. Ignore the Badoo as much as you possibly can. Like I said, this deck doesn't really care about Item Lock unless your hand is like that trashy. Go around it, just target the things around it. You just... if you get rid of the Badoo, that opens up a bench slot for them for other attackers, which they want to do. That's the reason why Badoo is in here, is to stall you long enough to where you can't do anything where it stalls you out to where it makes their board perfect, and when the Badoo dies, they can just bench something like Fez, like another Dreepy, like the Duskull, like the Halucha to just get off a combo turn. So I would say the Dragapult is just your easiest matchup, hands down. This was the other one I closed out. It was Mega Kangaskhan. So this matchup, I would say, hands down, is your closest outside of Zoroark. For a couple of reasons. One, this deck plays Absol. Mega Absol's terminal period will instantly knock you out if you have 6 damage counters on you. There is triple Monkey Dory in here. And why is that a problem? Well, you're not really good at one-shotting unless you're very lucky and hit a bunch of heads. So you can't really knock out the Absol successfully while they're sitting there using Claw of Darkness. One of the problems before when I was at the Full Grip event is I took out Mist Energy, so I essentially had to boss the entire game around the Mega Absol while he was sitting there using Claw of Darkness, which isn't good at all. That was pretty bad, but I still ended up 2-0ing my opponent. I used Baby Okidogi, which I posted in my Discord server before, and one of the reasons why it's in there and why I don't have it now. But in this matchup, really just set up your board to where you can get double Bouffalant, double Kangaskhan. Crustle's also really good in this matchup, believe it or not. It is very, very good. The problem is Cornerstone, but because you play triple Ice Cream and you play Mist Energy, it is so hard for them to get around a Crustle. They can't attack with Yveltal. They can't really attack a Monkey Dory. They can do damage, but they're not really doing anything. So I guess I would say if you have Luxurious Cape in your deck, you can kind of hide behind the Crustle and you win, as long as you get double Mist. If you get double Mist, their Enhanced Hammers don't do anything. Enhanced Hammer is a bit of an issue for the Crustle tech if they do end up playing it. That's one of the reasons why one of the 60-plus cards I considered a third Mist over the third Grass, actually, because Mist is just that important. So if you're able to slap down 2 Mist onto the Crustle while hiding behind, while they're just trying to set up a Cornerstone against you, the match is free. Like, the matchup is so free. But if you actually can't get to that, or you prize the Crustle, or they knock out your double quickly, this is where the skill kind comes in. You want to get double Bouffalant, you want to get double Kangaskhan, you want to get single to double Monkey Dory. I've even considered dropping all 3 Bouffalant in play, but the problem is Yveltal's clutch will stop the retreating. You only play 2 Penny. Palpad is also in the 60-plus cards that I would consider in here, too, because I think it's a really good card in general to have 6 bosses in a deck and have 4 pennies. So just keep that in mind. Setting up 2 Kangaskhan's, both big. I would not drop Lively Stadium at all. 1, they play it, and 2, that benefits them. They're going to be as big as you. You're just tanking less damage. If you're not one-shotting the Absol, guaranteed, or you're not one-shotting the Kangaskhan, do not go attack into them. Go around it. Go after Petrarch. Go after Monkey Dory. Go after their Latias. Go after their, like, literally go after anything else. Because 9 times out of 10, what they're going to do in this matchup is they're going to see a Kangaskhan, and they're gonna watch to see what your deck is doing. And if they see Bouffalant, they're going to go into Cornerstone because they're like, oh, they don't have an out. Unless they're playing, like, Mega Lopunny, which I wouldn't even consider in here. I think that card is trash in here. But they're going to go into Cornerstone. If they go into Cornerstone, you go into Crustle, because it's going to take them longer to deal with the Crustle than it is for you to set that thing up. Like I said, like a Latias or a manual switch would also be a pretty decent consideration in here for that specific reason. But all in all, I think the matchup is, I would say, one of your harder ones and more skill intensive, but it is 60-40. Your favor if you get Crustle 50-50. If not, you just got to play it right. I think that was the last one outside of, yep, and Zoroark. So, Enzo, I don't even want to talk about Flareon. I'm sorry, Emma, but this deck sucks. So, Zoroark. This was a deck that, when I was recording this the last night, I kind of just breezed over it and was like, oh, they just can't do anything. Like, they can't really get around a big Kangaskhan or a Cornerstone. But here's the thing. They actually can, and this is where the problem comes in. Because of the ability... Oh, wait, wait, what? They played 2 Watchtower and no Blood Moon? Okay, so this is Vinny's list. Obviously, a quick disclaimer that I probably should have said at the beginning. Obviously, these lists might be different with Phantasmal format. But at the Full Grip event, the decks that are currently legal barely changed from Phantasmal. Like, the winning Dragapult list, or the second place Dragapult list, I don't even think it played Dawn. I don't even think the finals deck of the Guardy list actually ended up playing Mega Diancie. It played Fluttermane for the mirror match. So, keep this in mind. Also, Zoroark doesn't really gain anything unless you, like, want to throw in the Mega Gengar, which I don't think is a bad tech. I don't think it's a bad strategy. I just think consistency is key, and Gengar really isn't on that level. It just makes Gholdengo a little bit of an easier matchup, which, with this build, it still looks like you kind of struggle against it, but if I remember correctly, Vinny played against 1-0, so... But I digress. In this matchup, if you get out Crustle, Crustle's really good. Obviously, you see everything around here. There's 3 Pokemon, technically, that can deal with this card. It is Mega Absol with Terminal Period, Yveltal with Clutch, and Badoo. Or even Monkey Dory if you want to throw it in there. But the one issue with this matchup on the Zoroark player is Mega Absol's weak to Grass, so you're hitting 240 damage. If you attach Mist Energy, that stops Terminal Period. There's no Enhanced Hammer. Scoop, go to game 2. Because you're not setting... I mean, you could set up Yveltal, but setting up Yveltal and using Dark Feather for 150 damage with a Lux Cape attached to me doesn't really do anything. I have Ice Creams. They're going to be accumulating damage with Poison more than likely. If they have a Hero's Cape onto it, that's cool. But if the lists aren't playing similar to this, and per se they do play... I mean, I don't even know what they'd play to get on Crustle, bro. Like, that's, like, their only real out is Mega Absol, so. I guess, like, I thought about this all wrong before. I think this matchup's actually fine if they're playing, like, Vinny's list. It's just harder for them to get around a Crustle. If you get Mist Energy, they don't play Enhanced Hammer. Obviously, that's easier said than done. That's kind of why I said I might want the 3rd Mist over the 2nd. Grass, it just makes Crispin worse. It makes Turbo Energize worse. But, I don't know. Maybe it is the move. Watchtower is really good for canceling out Kangaskhan and Bouffalant, so that is one thing you gotta watch out for, is if you hit into the Zoroark and don't knock it out, that's one of the reasons. This is another matchup where you kind of want to chase around it until you know you have knockout. So if they're doing Reshiram plays, and they do 110 to you with Bouffalant, if they have Watchtower, it's going to be 170 full. What you can do is you can set up triple Monkey Dory, get double Bouffalant in play, and then the Kangaskhan move 90 off of the Zoroark, and then immediately knock it out with Rapid Fire combo. If they have Hero Escape, obviously you try to ignore that Zoroark as much as you possibly can. Bump the Watchtower, or save your lively stadiums for Watchtowers if you don't care about the Artisans. Those Watchtowers not only shut down your Bouffalant, but it shuts down your Kangaskhan. It's really important that those Bouffalants don't go down. So if you're able to just target around the Zoroarks and consistently stream knockouts on like the Reshiram, eventually they're going to drop a 2-prizer, you're going to knock that out. Eventually, yes, you may run out of healing cards, but you got to go for like a Wombo combo, Rapid Fire combo. But at that point, they've still taken like 0 to 1 prizes. So if you have double Kangaskhan in play and you've taken 3 to 4 prizes, you can afford that knockout or the risky flips on the Zoroark, especially because they only go up to 380 HP. So 2 Rapid Fire combos, 6 in succession will knock you out. Will knock them out even if you miss both of them. One thing to watch out for is if you hit into the Zoroark, it does do 400 damage base. If you just do not hit it heads, that doesn't seem like the knockout, but with Binding Mochi, it definitely is a knockout. So just watch out for that play. That's why I'm saying just kind of go around the Zoroark as much as you possibly can and target everything else. Joltik box. A couple people obviously saw my Milwaukee run inside, destroyed every single Joltik box that I played against. I'm sorry, Zach. But this matchup is also extremely good. They just don't have anything to get around the Bouffalants successfully. Mega Mawile is a new inclusion that's really interesting, I'd say. It's the closest thing that can come to kill a Mega Kangaskhan. But if you take 5 prizes, they actually still can't knock you out. If you have Bravery Charm Double Bouffalant, that's 400 damage. 410 if 410 is 10 short. If you have Lively Stadium, it goes up a little bit more. So the Mega Mawile doesn't even do anything. You can double Monkey Move and just take them out. One of the things that Zach was explaining after the fact, because I think he learned how to play the matchup, and so did my round 1 or my round 9 opponent at Milwaukee, is if they Galvantula Bouffalants or like Iron Hands the Bouffalants, if they target down the Bouffalants, the matchup becomes a little bit favored, but it is super dependent on how well I flip as well. If I flip heads on these, Iron Hands, the matchup's pretty bad. Also, if I set up Crustle with Luxurious Cape, I think Galvantula just does not kill, so it's 180 damage, yeah. So I have Ice Cream, I can one-shot him. They play a single Night Stretcher, so they can set up 2, but the Ice Cream with the Crustle is actually really good into this matchup. So that creates 2 different things that's hard for them to get rid of, 2 different things for them to attempt to get around, and if they can't, it's just wrap. So I'd say this matchup is like 90-10 to 80-20. Like 80-20 if you just draw poor, 90-10 if you just get everything like you need and just set up like your deck should. Terabox, the Szymanski and Frank special. Both locals, both players I've played against pretty consistently. Both innovators of this deck that my locals just don't seem to drop. So how do we beat this, right? One of the main things with the Terabox matchup is they have Wellspring, which is what the centralization is on them, to prevent setup against stuff like Gardevoir and Dragapult. Kind of nuke their board. With this, you can't. You have access to Bouffalants. Bouffalants prevent the damage from the Wellspring, able to take you out. It prevents Fan Burn from being able to pretty much knock out anything. Having access to Flareon to auto-kill or have that big knockout that Terabox normally can't hit isn't accessible anymore. It's only 220 damage with the Bouffalant. And if you just don't overbench like crazy, Fairy never one-shot you or two-shot you, I think. Travagos can get annoying because it also is one of those Pokemon that hits 180 damage. But with a single Monkey Move and a couple Ice Creams, you just put yourself out of range for everything as well. Pikachu never does anything. If they hit you once, you Monkey Move and knock it out. So yeah, this match is just really good. I'd say it's like another 90-10 to like 80-20. They do not have anything that can one-shot you. I don't even think Passimian one-shot you, which is insane, because I've seen that before with Passimian, so just keep that in mind. It's just a war of getting out double Bouffalant. You can get out Shaman if you want to against this. I think that's just icing on the cake. Just be careful of Stop Block. That's another thing that they can do to get around you, especially with 2 boss and a counter catcher. They can drag up 3 things at once at multiple different periods. They just do that. More times than they're going to go after the Shaman, because that doesn't do enough damage for anything. But, it's a possibility. They'll eventually knock out the Shaman. They can't knock out the Bouffalants. The Bouffalants can two-shot them. So. Charizard Pidgeot, another deck. I have heard over and over, how do we beat this? I'm not going to use that as an example because that one actually was not the winning list, I believe. I think this was similar to it. I think this was similar to what ended up actually winning, getting the finals of the event. Zero Dusknoir. So, with this list, it's just pretty straightforward. Zero Dusknoir obviously helps. One of the biggest problems with Charizard is that they can manipulate knockouts. If they go Dusknoir and then Burning Darkness, that's 210, 340 damage immediately right there. But They don't play Duster, like I said. So you can hide behind Kangaskhan with double Monkey, double Bouffalant, even triple Monkey at times, and double Bouffalant, and then the two, or no, you need the two Kangaskhan, double Monkey, double Bouffalant. Yeah, that's what you need to do. Turbo Energize, they're not doing any damage in the early game. They can do 120 max. You move 30 onto the Charizard, knock it out, or you could target the Pidgeot. I would almost always target the Pidgeot if you had the accessibility to, because their whole deck is just super reliant on Pidgeot. So one hit from the Charizard onto you, you can move 30, boss a Pidgeot. A single heads knocks it out. The only thing that you'd need to worry about at that point is Turo and Monkey Dory just kind of moving off the damage if you do whiff. But because there is 4 boss and you didn't take a prize card, they're still only hitting you for X amount of damage. And that allows you, if you do actually miss the flip and they don't get Monkey Dory, to move the damage off and knock out the Pidgeot that way, while also getting the ability to knock out the active through a couple heads flips. So that's how I would approach a matchup. It's relatively favored. I would say a good Charizard player would be 50-50 if it was like Jackson. Obviously, if you go into Crustle, like Crustle helps a lot, but you gotta like watch out for that Chi-Yu, because that Chi-Yu does just one-shot you. So just keep that in mind. I almost never drop Crustle against this matchup just because I know, unless I see Moltres. If I see Moltres, I know they don't play Chi-Yu. If they play both, well, they're just not doing it right, in my opinion. So just keep that in mind. If you do see Moltres, you don't see Chi-Yu, because Moltres plus Max Spell actually one-shots Gholdengo in the matchup, so you don't have to commit a Charizard and play and keep it one prize board. So yeah, I think Charizard is 60-40 your favor, 50-50 if it's like a really, really good Charizard player and you're just drawing like crap. And the last one that I unfortunately do have to talk about, because I know a couple people are going to be asking about it, how do you beat Raging Bolt? So Raging Bolt, in my opinion, is a C tier to D tier deck right now. It has not shown its consistencies very well in the last couple events. It just gets bodied by Guardy. For some reason, it still has like a weird Dragapult matchup when it should be stomping Dragapult, and it has a bad Gholdengo matchup, which is all things that you don't want to have. It is so bad to where they started implementing one Wellspring and one Water Energy to start sniping around it, and having the ability to take out all of their baby Pokemon, and going to 4 Crispin and dropping down on the side count, which is just... ugh. But this matchup is pretty difficult. I will say that right off the bat. They do need... what was it? It was 7, 21... 7, 14, 21, 28... 35... 42... They need 7 energies in play if you have Lively Stadium out, double Bouffalant plus Charm, which is a bit of an ask in this deck specifically, but with the accessibility to Glass Trumpet, double Teal Mask, Sada, Crispin, like they can crap out the energies. Can they do it twice? I don't know. That's kind of like, they have Sada, so I can imagine they can do it once successfully, because there is 3, 6, 11, 12 energies in the deck, and if they need, what did I say, 7? It's harder for them to get it twice, but it's definitely not impossible. Plus, I play Koraidon. I don't think Koraidon actually one-shots Mega Kangaskhan, the more I think about it. 180 damage. That's 360. No, they can't one-shot you. Okay, yeah, so this matchup is pretty bad because they can one-shot you, but I wouldn't write it off as an auto-loss because you also have access to Crustle. Crustle can't be one-shot by Koraidon if you have Luxurious Cape, and I think you, with a single Monkey move, you one-shot them back. Yeah, and you have access to Ice Cream. Raging Bolt can't one-shot you unless you just dump a crap ton of energy on you. They can two-shot you, but then you have Monkey, move it over, and one-shot them back. So I guess if you go like mono Crustle with a couple Monkey Dories, it's very difficult for them to deal with. Any other board state, it's like, you know, get double Bouffalant, get a Monkey Dory out, get double Kangaskhan, just hope they don't have the knockout twice. But the more I think about it, like, the Crustle goes in really hard, because obviously, like, if they play Slitherwing, it's a little bit different than Koraidon. They just legitimately can't do anything to you, and they take the damage themselves. So if you have Miss Energy attached, it goes in hard. I also think Mew from the Raging Bull player can get in there because they do play Crispin. So that is something to watch out for with Superb Scissor. So if you see them going for that, you just get down double Monkey Dory and just move the 60 off of it, use Ice Cream, and then just kill the Mew right back because that's 180 damage with the 2 moves. So that, I think, would be all of the matchups and how to approach them. Let me see if I'm like forgetting anything pivotal real quick. I think Grimmsnarl, but
Grimmsnarl is just kind of self-explanatory. They just cannot do enough damage. Ceruledge, it just depends on their energy count. Alakazam's bad if they just double Enhanced Hammer. Yeah, I guess that's everything that's, like, relevant. So, what would I play if I had allowed to have more than 61 cards?
Hey guys, so I don't know why the audio cut out, but in editing it just kind of went bad. Essentially, I was explaining why I wanted the second Crustle. It's just consistent and getting out the second Dwebble, and then I start to go into the Latias, which allows you to get into it. So first off, the second Crustle obviously would be another good one to have in here. Second Crustle is just consistent. You can access it when you have it, and if you end up having it in hand, and only having access to one Dwebble and you do Ascension, like having the second one's really good, and having two set up against certain matchups just kind of auto wins. The issue is just space, and I don't know if it's just really worth it over the Shaman when Shaman is just so imperative in the Guardy. Latias is another card I kind of explained earlier, to where you can free retreat into the Dwebble and use Ascension quickly. The problem with it is you keep a two-prizer in play. That doesn't really serve a benefit. Outside of just that, you don't play Psychic Energies, you can't crisp it and use it against Mega Lucario, which sucks. But it's not the end of the world. It's a clutch target, and I just don't like having it in here over just like Switch. Speaking of which, a copy of Switch, also not bad. I think a copy of Switch would be cool in here. It's just an item Switch card, obviously. It's searchable with Arven. It's never bad to have. Gets out of clutch locks, so now you have to spot. If you do, the new active Pokemon is Confused. So why do I feel like this is good over literally anything else? Well, at least his appeal allows you to confuse opposing Mega Absols, and it's really good in the mirror match. This card, because of the added effect of your opponent's active is now confused, it pretty much stunts them from being able to do anything going into the next turn. Like, it could stun a Terabox Energize, it could stun a Claw of Darkness, it may allow you to skip a turn, it may allow you to get an extra turn on them, just because they're having to deal with the confusion flip, and you're not using an attack to do the confusion with, like, Monkey Dory, and it's another really cool way that you could get around the terminal period turn. Because that's going to force them to have double Monkey Dory. It's going to have the force them to have the Enhanced Hammer and the switch out for the confusion flip. So it's a really, really, really cool card. It's also pretty solid. It's just being a 5th Gust against the baby Pokemon. So it's just, I really like it in here. If I could fit in here, I could fit in here. This is another card that I was talking about earlier of, like, the tech card that maybe if it was tested more, it could be really good. Bianca's Devotion. Heal all damage from one of your Pokemon that has 30 HP or less remaining. This is really good against Mega Lopunny because if they hit into you for 160, you use one Ice Cream and a Monkey move. Or if you use one Ice Cream, it puts you at 80. If they do it again, that's 160, so that's 240 with a Lux Cape. If you use Bianca's, not only do you one-shot the Mega Lopunny after a couple of Monkey moves after that, but you heal everything off the Crustle tonight, but Fresh Crustle, and they cannot one-shot you with the Zoroark. My only advice with this card is, there's not too many, like, scenarios to where this is actually good, outside of, like, that one, and I feel like we're already kind of going in on the Mega Lopunny tech enough. I don't think there's too many matchups where this Bianca's could be super useful outside of the Crustle, but I don't know. That's why I said I want to test it more. I want to see exactly if this is cope or if this could, be genuinely good in the Crustle deck. Brave Bangle is another one that some of you might be looking at. Well, it's good with Crustle, so you're able to just kind of two-shot some of the counters. You one-shot Cornerstone with a Bravery Charm, which is really sick. Even under Lively Stadium, I think you one-shot it because it goes up to 290. So you could sacrifice the Luxurious Cape for it. It's just, it feels mid at most and very situational. What else was I considering? Chorus and Cypher were fine. Counter Gain is another one, because we don't play Brother Bear or Blood Moon or Saluna. It's just an Arven searchable card. Allows you to, if you Turbo Energize and they took a knockout last turn, you're able to go Counter Gain. Now I attack for 2 and I can Crispin onto something else to set up my board, such as like Monkey Dories or a benched Kangaskhan. It's just a really cool card. I don't know if I like it over Bravery Charm. I think it's really cute at getting what you need to do. Also, Counter Gain plus Counter Catcher
in the same turn. Plus, Crispin can just, like, annihilate boards, but I don't know. This doesn't really do anything if you're not playing Absol. Oh, where was it? I think I saw it a minute ago and I just looked over it. Okay, so Cook. Cook is another card. It's another card around low punny because if you go Ice Cream Cook, heals enough damage. It's also another way to heal under item lock, so if Jellicent hits you for an amount of damage and you have that Cook in hand, you can immediately, like, Monkey move enough damage and then Cook. It's just a simple, easy support card that you can search off of Pokegear. And healing 70 is still pretty good. Where is it? Iono isn't terrible. I just don't like the fact that it hurts you at the same time. I think some hand disruption could be cute. I just don't know yet. It's just, when I was playing Iono, it felt really bad. Like, it'd feel like, even if this deck feels like even if your opponent has every single card in the entire universe, this deck just still is unbeatable because you're just unkillable. So, that's really where I'm at with Iono. I'd prefer to just be Lilies, so that's an honorable mention right there. %, this is the 61st card. If I had access to play Palpad, I would. It immediately, I think I stated this earlier, where it turns into 4 pennies, so you never get clutch locked. It turns into 6 bosses, so you could always have it against the matchups that you absolutely need to, especially against Mega Kangaskhan and Absol. Especially if they start ripping them, it gets really weird. So if you have access to Palpad is just really good to recycle them and get knockouts pretty consistently on them. So going to 4 gear also isn't bad, just straight consistency. I played 4 gear and I absolutely loved it, but we needed to cut some spaces just so we could fit in other cards, and Pokegear unfortunately was just one of the cuts. Super Rod, I think I talked about this a little bit, where I might want 1 Super Rod, 1 Stretcher. It's good for resetting the Crustle line and getting an energies back so you could Crispin into it, but since we're not that heavy into Crispin anymore, the Super Rod seems okay at best. But it's not bad. I think I just prefer getting the energy or Pokemon back to my hand instead of having to find it. Because like I said, there's like no search in this deck. It's just pretty much draw everything you want. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But I wouldn't hate if somebody did do it. It's not terrible. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible. Watchtower is also a pretty cool consideration. It's also a cornerstone counter in case you prize your Crustle. If you drop this down, I think we saw Ryuki Okada do this in his Mega Kangaskhan list for Vegas or the regionals before that. But he was doing it as a cornerstone counter. I would use it as a cornerstone counter if I wasn't already playing Crustle. And like Kangaskhan was my only deck. If it was like 4 Kangaskhan, 3 Monkey, 3 Bouffalant, a Shaman, and that was my only out, I would be playing a Watchtower. And the last card I'd recommend, probably, outside of like the 3rd Mist, and this is going to seem weird, is a couple medical energies. One of the main reasons why medical energy actually isn't in here, though, is because you need to play in the numbers for it to be relevant. But with medical energy plus Ice Cream, you actually heal 110 damage off, which is quite a lot of damage in a turn, and it counts as a colorless attack, or a colorless energy. So against Mega Low Punny, if you slam down the medical energy, heal off 30, heal Ice Cream. How much damage is that? It's 140 healed off in 1 turn. That's literally leaving him with 20 damage left to deal with, to work with going into the next turn. So I think medical, as long as it's in numbers, is really, really strong in here. It's just there's like a couple of situations where it's just like mid at most. But it's good. Also, another thing that I completely forgot to mention is Jet Energy. Jet Energy is also good for pushing up the Crustle fast. It's just there's no way to search it out, which makes it like kind of weird. I just prefer the Switch because you can get it with Arvin. So, we're at the end of the guide. I thank everybody for the support and for watching. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Discord who have been interested in this deck and kind of trusting me with my testing and the amount of hours that I put into this deck. I hope that anyone that kind of watches this guide or like picks up this deck does see success with it, whether it be in Stuttgart or just in any other regionals or locals that they end up attending to in the future in this format. I put a ton of hours, a ton of work into this. I don't really make content as much as I used to or like to. I'm just busy. I've got a full-time job and a kid. So it's just harder for me to push out content like this unless I just have like a massive day off. It's Black Friday as I'm recording this, so and the day after Thanksgiving. So I obviously have the day off. So I'm going to be doing this to help you guys.
and I want to see my creations and kind of like my builds succeed too. It just is heartwarming when I see someone else like work on a concept and like bring one of my lists, be like, dude, I succeeded because I saw your guide and da 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 da. Like, I'm not the best player in the world, I'm not a top player, but like I feel like I'm well equipped and like good enough in the game to where I can provide my insight and really help others. But thank you all for watching. Please subscribe and like for more content, and I'll see y'all later.